The thing is, your frontal lobe can't ignore your own voice. Okay, it can only take in 40 to 50 pieces of information out of 11 billion. Yeah, that's true. But guess one that it cannot ignore? That's your own voice. I'm Bridget Hart, a business and life coach who has been working with professionals and family-owned businesses for the past 13 years. I am excited to have you here with me today. Don't forget to subscribe down below, like the video, and leave me a comment because this is all about interacting with you. So before I dive in, the most important thing for you to remember is that you are exactly perfect just as you are. I've said it before in many videos, but I want to remind you, you are exactly right, even with your current imperfections or flaws or things you don't like about yourself. All of those things are exactly right. And everything that you need is already within you, waiting for you to just manifest it, okay? The second thing is this process takes time. You deserve the grace to get that time and make it through the process, but consistency is going to be your key. So last time I talked about talk and how we can use talking and speaking about the traumas and things that we have had in our life that have affected us. Talking about those things can put the shame to death that has been growing inside of us due to those traumatic events, right? So this week though, I'm going to talk really more directly about the actual thoughts themselves and how we can approach them very directly. I am not suggesting that these methodologies can or should replace therapy. If you have not gotten therapy and you deal with a lot of anxious and negative thinking, I highly recommend find yourself a therapist that you can resonate with and make sure you're going to regular therapy. Even if you're not dealing with anxious and negative thoughts, I think everybody should get at least a year of therapy to work through the traumas that all of us have experienced in our lives. There's a lot of benefit to it as long as you do resonate with that therapist. Don't take this as medical advice, but these tricks and tips can help you as you're moving through it and when you're in between therapist appointments as well. So let's talk about thoughts. The human body is incredible, like mind-blowing really, and the brain especially plays a really important part in those anxious and negative thoughts that we have. I want to introduce you to a little system in our brain called the reticular activating system. All right, look it up. It's a real thing. It's basically a bundle of nerves that's in our brain that kind of connects all the different parts, takes in all the inputs and decides what needs to be done with throughout the body. You know, it kind of sends out all the directions for the brain as to what needs to occur to keep everything where we want. I like to compare it to my husband's favorite topic, the HVAC thermostat. Okay, the thermostat in your house where you turn the temperature up or down so that your house stays the way you want it, right? The RAS kind of operates like that in our brain. It kind of takes all the inputs from around, it checks through what the thermostat or what the homeowner, ourselves, our brain, our amygdala has told it that it wants in reality, and then it sends out the reactionary controls to make sure that we believe that reality is true. Okay, in a nutshell, that's what it is. You can read the science, there's a lot of big words and things, but I'm not a doctor. So in any given second, our brain has 11 million bits of information all around it to pull in and kind of process, okay? And our entire brain can pull in 11 billion pieces, but our conscious mind, or the part that we actually see and experience, can only pull in 40 to 50 bits of information per second. So 40 to 50 bits out of 11 billion is how much we can be aware of at any given second of time. All right. So the RAS is our system that kind of determines what are going to be the 40 or 50 pieces of information out of 11 billion that I'm going to go ahead and pull in and cause my body to respond to in whatever way I deem appropriate. Now, this works together with the amygdala and the frontal lobe. And basically the amygdala, or some people call it our lizard brain, is the one that has learned how to keep us safe and alive as we go through, right? It teaches us how to find food. It teaches us that when trauma happens that we need to be afraid of those traumas, and it teaches the RAS to watch out for the possibility of those traumas in our day-to-day life, right? And over the course of many years of our amygdala telling our RAS, hey, look out for this danger, look out for this danger, look out for this danger, our brains begin to only pull in the information that would emphasize, oh, there's that danger. Oh, there's that danger. Oh, there's that danger. Oh, I see that danger. I'm looking out for that danger, right? I see it all the time. And thus our negative and anxious thinking is verified over and over again by our brain. And we feel very justified in what we feel because we constantly see evidence of what we know to be true and what we know to be afraid of on purpose right now. A lot of this is subconscious, but the truth is some of it is conscious. And the real truth is that we can make it fully conscious. And this is the intentional hack to go ahead and change your reality. Now, just like I described, the amygdala takes information in that will support its knowledge that certain fearful, traumatic things happen. It also cannot ignore that the frontal lobe is pulling information in as well, right? And the frontal lobe pulls in information like things that we see, things that we hear, etc., right? And it forces our brain to choose from 40 to 50 of those as well, right? Those are parts of the 11 billion pieces of information. This is a kind of very powerful piece of the whole puzzle when we talk about how we can change our reality, because what we can do is we can force our brain to change the way that we are interacting with our reality on this planet. This is really the secret to the secret. It's the secret to the law of attraction. It's also the secret to why cognitive behavioral therapy works, why talk therapy works, etc., right? It's because our brain works the way that it does. So look up the reticular activating system if you don't believe me. But the point is that we can intentionally hack this particular thing about our brain and cause it to work in our favor every time. I call this activity the top 5 thoughts activity. I have to give credit to my coaches, the amazing Clarks, Melanie and Anthony Clark, who have been my coaches for over a decade now. They taught me this activity way back then, and I still use it all the time, although I find I have to use it less and less because it's now become second nature for me to do this in my life, and it's a very natural part of my daily mental processing now. We are talking about anxious and negative thoughts, okay? So the way this activity works, we're going to do 4 things. Number 1, we're going to recognize those thoughts, okay? We're going to question those thoughts. We're going to disrupt those thoughts, and then we're going to redirect those thoughts, okay? It's okay that you have the thoughts, but we're going to be intentional about what we're going to do about them right now. So step 1, get yourself a pen, get yourself some paper, sit down, take a moment, okay? And deep breath. Think about, what are the top 5 thoughts running through your head on a consistent basis every day that are really causing you to have negative and anxious feelings in your body? All right. Now, I don't want you to write down the topic that you think about. Okay. If the topic is money, I don't want you to write down money as one of your thoughts. I want you to write down the actual thought that you have. So like, for example, is the thought, I don't know how I'm going to pay rent next month. Or perhaps the thought is, I would like to learn how to invest so I can make a lot more money. Or maybe the thought is, I don't have enough money to pay for my kids' back to school supplies. What am I going to do? What kind of parent am I? Right? So whatever the thought is, top 5 thoughts, I want you to write each of them down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now that you have those 5 thoughts written down, the next step is that you are going to question each of those thoughts. I want you to take that thought, read it, and I want you to ask yourself, 1, is it true? Is this thing true or not? You know, do I have enough money for my kids' back to school supplies? Is that true? Well, it's kind of true, right? Like maybe I've prioritized a couple other things instead of that. It's not that I have no money, it's just that I have no money for that, right? Or perhaps I really have no money at all and, you know, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Or perhaps I've prioritized some personal things over some of my kids' needs, right? So there's a lot of thoughts for me to go through there. So is it true is the first question you want to ask yourself. Next question could be, is there anything around this challenge or issue that I can be grateful for, right? So perhaps, yeah, it sucks that I don't have any money for my kids' back to school supplies, but we were able to pay rent. We've been eating well this week. We got XYZ taken care of. So maybe there's other things that I can focus on to be grateful for related to that situation. Number 3, think about, is there any other alternatives to help you resolve that situation? Could you reach out to some family members? Maybe, an auntie or uncle or one of your friends would like to contribute a little bit to a backpack or some back to school supplies, right? And then finally think about if none of those have worked and you haven't been able to find any alternate perspectives still that make you feel good, better than the initial thought did, then you can even try an imagination, right? So just say, I can imagine, visualize what it will feel like when I have plenty of budget to take my kids back to school shopping, and we can go to the mall and we can buy everything they want. They can get new shoes and new outfits and all their cool school supplies and the coolest backpacks and extra toys and all kind of great things, right? And see if you can get a visualization. So in step 2, you're going to attempt to find and write down an alternate perspective for each of the 5 top thoughts that you have. And the important thing about that alternate perspective is that it feels good to you. All right. That's the important thing. That's the criteria. It's got to feel good to you. Now, I like it to include one of those things, either it's gratitude or it's a visualization of a better reality, or of an ideal state of being, or maybe it's solutions focused and you've come up with some answers or solutions, or maybe it's just an outright lie, like this is totally not true. And in fact, you have plenty of money, more than enough money for that, or more than enough resources. Step 3, you're going to actively disrupt your thinking over and over. Okay, now this is the sciencey part of it all. This is kind of how the science comes into what otherwise would seem like some kind of magical miracle thing. But the science behind this is remember I mentioned before that our frontal lobe is another place where the RAS has to pull information and it has to decide to deal with it or not deal with it. And then it tells the brain what to look for to back up that information, okay? And to make me continue to believe that my life is real. When you disrupt your thinking with very intentional activities, like for example, you hear that first thought come through your head, like, oh, I don't have enough money, I'm so stressed out, I'm anxious. No, disrupt, stop. I will say, no, that is not true. And then say out loud or read out loud or think intentionally that alternate perspective or alternate thought. No, that is not true. It's not that I don't have money for my kids. Or it is that I don't have money for my kids. That's true. And that really is sucking. I can validate that feeling, but I can imagine and I can visualize what it's going to feel like when I have enough for them to get everything that they want to get. I'm going to disrupt and I'm going to replace or redirect. That's step number 4, is I'm going to actually disrupt, and then number 4, redirect that thought and say out loud the more positive or the feel good alternate perspective that I wrote down in step 2. Okay, so the thing is, your frontal lobe can't ignore your own voice. Okay, it can only take in 40 to 50 pieces of information out of 11 billion. Yeah, that's true. But guess one that it cannot ignore. That's your own voice. It's like, wait, I recognize that. That's my voice. Wait, that's me. Wait, listen up. Hey, brain, you have to pay attention to this. My body, my mouth, something just came out and it sounded different. It was not the same as what I'm used to, but it was us, for sure it was us. So I'm going to need you to handle this information and tell me what to do about this. How do I adjust? What do I do? And your brain is forced to adjust, right? Your amygdala cannot argue with your own voice. Okay, so when you speak that out loud, it activates your frontal lobe and forces your brain to process something new, something different. And when it does, it begins to adjust over time. It begins to adjust how it pulls in 40 to 50 pieces of information from the world around us, because it has new instructions about what to look for as truth out there. Okay, now I've made it very simplistic, but the truth is it works. So try it, the top 5 thoughts exercise. And I will warn you, you are going to have resistance. I promise you, you are going to have a lot of thoughts about like, what? I am not going to lie to my brain. This feels like a lie. I can't try to do this. And in essence, you are lying to your brain. Okay, because your brain really believes the messages that the amygdala has been feeding it for your whole life, right? As different traumas, different things, not only traumas, good things as well, but as different experiences happen through your life, your amygdala is super persistent with its messages about what's true for you, right? And so when you try to push back and say, oh, no, I don't like that story. I'm changing that story. That's not the story for me. Your amygdala is like, wait, hold up, stop. You cannot do that. That is not safe. It's dangerous. Blah, 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 wait, warning. Or it'll call you a hypocrite or whatever those voices are that have been put in your head over your life. It will pull all of those stops out, okay? Understand, you aren't lying to your brain because the alternate perspective you chose is not a lie. It's just an alternate way of looking at the same situation, okay? It's just another viewpoint is all. It's like you just jumped over to the other mountaintop to look at it instead of the mountaintop you had been living on, right? So this is the scientific way to change your brain, change your thoughts, change your reality. It's not easy. It takes time. It takes practice. It takes consistency, but you can do it. Now, as always, I recommend therapy. If you have not had therapy and you've had traumas in your life, I highly recommend you go get therapy. These little tricks and tips that I'm teaching you are not a replacement for therapy, okay? You need to still go get that, boo-boo. However, in between, these hopefully can be helpful to you and maybe in conjunction, and also keep in mind that every therapist is not for you. So if you're trying to get therapy and it's not working well for you or you're not vibing with it, maybe it's because you don't have the right therapist for you. Keep looking. It's all right. You deserve to have the right care for you. Of course, like every week I ask, please subscribe, like, comment, share my video if you have anything, anyone that you think could benefit from it, and let me know what you think, or let me know what kind of questions you have. I would love to make a video to answer your questions, and I hope you got some value out of it. I love you so much, as always, and I will see you next week.